Yeah, let's talk about the good. What was your first good from the Steelers' victory over the Browns?
First off, this is Dave Corbin, Bob Quinn from Steelers Central Podcast. This is the night crew, I guess you could call it. Um, my first good, I'm going to go with Bob. Honestly, it's Deshaun Elliott was a force, man. 13 tackles, nine of them were solo. The pass defense on the Joku on I think it was the third down attempt was huge by him. Um, he's just a human missile, man, and he's had himself quite a season. So he'd be a good I want to go with for this for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, the guy's been a revelation. I mean, you could arguably make a case that he's been our best defensive player this year. Um,
Yeah,
you know, yeah, TJ's always TJ. I mean, not saying that, but I mean, just from simply the game and how he's played it, I mean, he's really been a welcome addition. He's a guy we've kind of been looking for a while to sit next to Minka so he could, I guess, not get involved and bother to intercept the ball. But I mean, it is what it is. Um,
yeah.
my, my first good was Jalen. And I don't know why Jalen Warren. I don't know why they waited till the second half to start using him. But man, he was. I mean, it was a noticeable pop for the offense in the second half when he got involved. I mean, 9 carries, 47 yards, 5 targets, caught 2 balls, and he did what he does. He turned little 5, 6 yard screens into 10, 15, 20 yard plays. So,
Right.
you know, him and Najee are both coming up for contracts, and you know, we, part of our crew, if you watch the regular podcast, are huge Najee fans. I like Najee. I've always been, I've never been one of those ones who said, hey, no, we necessarily shouldn't have drafted him. Probably could have gone somewhere else in the first round, but at this point in his career, he's going to be 28, 29. I don't see that there's anything huge or special about him to the point where, we didn't franchise him. Even if we end up paying him 7, 8 million after this year and we pay him a million or two more, it's not going to make a big difference in the salary cap. And, frankly, they probably go in the draft and, get somebody else to pair with Jalen.
Yeah. Nixon Montoya said Stafford, Williams, or Herbert for the rest of the playoffs, and or Rodgers. A fantasy football question. Out of that
I would,
crew, Stafford's got what? He's got Cup and he's got Puka Nakua, right? So I would definitely go with him out of that group.
well, surprisingly, Justin Herbert is a pretty high scorer. I've got him on
I
one
feel
of my
bad for him.
teams. Yeah, I've got one of my teams, and I think it's because he's mobile and he gets a few more rushing yards than Matt Stafford does. Obviously, you would think on the surface, it depends if you've got a 4 point passing touchdown lead. I think I would lean Herbert, or maybe even Caleb Williams. He had a couple 30 point performances, and he didn't. Yeah, even though they got blown out, he didn't have a terrible points game against the 49ers either. So honestly, I might put Stafford at the bottom of that list. I definitely wouldn't do Rodgers because we kind of talked about this on our podcast. I think there's a chance he's going to get cut.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think you're right. Um, Also, for Nixon here, I would also go off of matchups as well. You're just going to have to go off of matchups to decide which way to go.
It's interesting that your league would let you carry that many quarterbacks unless you got two of them in the waiver wires out
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he's got a waiver wire he could go after. But anyways, back to the Steelers.
there. Yeah,
Um,
so obviously, I don't know how you felt about it, but we're talking goods across the board. I touted Keanu Benton before the year started as our best defensive lineman. I didn't know Cam was going to come back and play like he is. Obviously, Cam is the best defensive lineman this year. I think long term is still Benton, but I I think if I would rather see Benton on the field in those two sets than Ogunjobi. and I think they're starting to phase that in. I don't know how you
Hmm.
feel about it, but I mean, I like Ogunjobi, but at this point, I think he should be a rotational piece.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. The guy gets injured a lot. That's my big thing with Ogunjobi is he's just very injury prone. Benton actually was the highest ranked defensive lineman in the league this past week. I just saw that. I was just like, oh wow. He was, I forget what the ranking was, but I want to say it was in the 90s, Bob. He got a very high rank.
Yeah,
I mean, when you're a D line and you get an interception, that helps.
that
So,
helps a lot.
had the pass defense as well. That's been the big thing about our D line is just the fact that they have so many pass defense. They've blocked so many throws.
Yeah,
It's just it's a thing that they really have a knack for. Speaking of D linemen, I mean, if you're going to bring up Ben, we got to bring up Cam. I mean, 5 tackles, 3 solo, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, just an absolute force by the old man here. I just, my gosh, I feel like now they got him for a fucking steal. Like this season's been something else for him. It's like he's I don't know. It's like he's found the fountain of youth or something. I don't know, but he's looking amazing, and it was a big factor in this game up the middle. So he'd be another one I would put under the good for sure.
yeah. I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk the last couple days about maybe him being a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. And certainly he's an all pro. I mean, when you're a defensive tackle, I mean, if your name's not Aaron Donald or Reggie White, generally you don't, or Mean Joe Green, you generally don't win the award. He's only a sack and a half behind TJ, so I kind of get where locally we would think he should be a candidate. I just don't think nationally he rings that bell. Although it's really not a great year for Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, I know some people have talked about Garrett being a serious candidate, and I was like, I'm sorry, but they're probably going to be 4-13.
Right.
I mean, maybe 5-12. I mean, I can't take you seriously as a defensive player of the year if your team can't win games. I
And he
mean,
disappears in some games.
yeah. I mean, and you look back at some of the knock on TJ when we were going 9-8 and 10-7 and 9-7. Hey, he how dominant is he? The Steelers are barely good enough to get in the playoffs. And it's like, okay, well, if that's the standard for TJ, then it needs to be the standard for everybody else. I mean, I think honestly, if Aiden Hutchinson didn't get hurt, he probably would have walked away. Let's see, Steven, I'm in a pick'em league for 60K with 7 people left. Need a lock this week. Broncos, Cards, or Falcons? Somebody doesn't follow legendary picks because
My man, you got to watch Legendary Picks on Fridays.
yeah. Oh, geez. Definitely not the
So sixty
Falcons.
thousand. I don't. I'd have to know who they're facing. I mean,
I want to say I started to look this up and do research today for the legendary picks. I want to say that the Cardinals are might be the 49ers.
I also want to say hi to T Rav, Bills fan. He said Bills fan here. Hello, all. So hi T Rav. So then T Rav just put I go Broncos overall, of course. Um,
Yeah, the only thing I would say is for the Falcons,
Falcons play
ma-
Raiders. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, think about how bad we've been burned by the Falcons. I mean, I don't think anybody on the
yeah,
podcast can get them right week after week. Kirk Cousins hasn't thrown a touchdown pass since the beginning of November.
I know, but he's already used 14 teams. I mean, he's limited. Like, I mean, the Raiders literally, I think, are tanking. Like, they're horrendous. I don't.
Help us, help us out, Steven. Tell us who they're playing.
Yeah, we got to know all 3 teams and who they're playing. Hell, T Rav, who are the Broncos playing? Since you're a Broncos fan. Oh no, you're a Bills fan.
Yeah,
Sorry, never mind.
I want to say the Broncos aren't playing the Chiefs. There was want to say it was
Yeah,
like 5.5 points.
yeah, I wish I could swipe out on my phone to look at it, but I can't. So unless
Yeah.
he gets us that, but right off the bat, Falcons against Raiders. Is it at Atlanta or is it in Las Vegas? That's another big deal too. Um, Cardinals versus
Well,
Patriots. Oh boy,
is it?
he
Didn't
said
Aidan
don't salt
O'Connell?
me. What was that?
Huh? Didn't
Uh,
Aidan O'Connell get hurt? Ooh, Broncos versus Colts. That's an interesting one. I think
it is.
it's in Denver. I think, and Cards over the pass. Oh, you know what? As much as I like Drake May, and I think the Patriots are playing much better offensively, I might lean Cards. I don't think the Broncos would be an upset if they beat the Colts. That defense, I don't think Pittman can. I'd want to see if Josh Downs is going to be healthy because Surtain got cooked by Judy.
See, here's the thing though with that pick'em stuff. He if he picks the Cards, then he won't have them anymore against some of these other teams. He would have to look at the schedules for all three of these teams if he's going to have them next week. He's going to have to be very strategic on which one he decides to pick because of next week as well.
Well, I know
Broncos
the Broncos.
on record are a good team, right? I mean, they have a winning record, so I mean, I don't know
They
if I
do
want to.
play the Chiefs in Week 18.
Oh, ooh, see, so maybe you do spend it now with them.
Yeah, the Broncos Colts. If it's straight up, I might lean there. If I know the spread's 3.5, I don't know that I love that. I feel like that's a 3-point game.
Which one?
The Broncos Colts.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, you're right. That offense for them, for the Denver Broncos, still does worry me. So yeah, I get what you're saying. And with the Colts, you just don't know. You don't know what Colts team's going to show up, which offense it is. I
Right.
just
And
so
him being
yeah.
on the Falcons right now, I mean, I get it. They're playing the Raiders, who are terrible. Best thing you can do is maybe provoke Antonio Pierce into fighting somebody on the sideline. And by somebody, I mean somebody on the Raiders because that's all he would fight with. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd look at Aidan O'Connell's status because if you're Minshew, I think is gone for the year, right? Or something
Yeah, I
along
believe
those
so.
lines.
Yeah,
And if O'Connell can't play and you're looking at the Raiders third string quarterback, then yeah, the Falcons could be a very
that's what I'm
attractive
saying.
team.
Like they're depleted at QB too. Like they're in team in such a decline. Like I because the Falcons know they got to turn it around now. They're in a dogfight in their division. That's why I would. As soon as I heard Raiders, I was like, oh, Falcons. I would think you're all right though. Their offense has been bad. So
Yeah,
I
really
don't
bad.
know. For him, I would look up the next couple weeks matchups now. Unless he doesn't have to. Unless this is the last week. Steve, is this the last week
So
for
I said he
picks?
has 3 weeks left, I think.
Or just keep
I
first round
believe in
pick?
the
You think?
ATL for the upset. I don't think Atlanta beating the Raiders qualifies as an upset.
Yeah. Uh,
But I get your point. I
You
mean,
said,
I
look, it goes to week 18, so he's going to have to be careful because I would probably pick Atlanta this week. Next week, you better hope you can pick the Cards. Who do the Cards face next week? Because when does the Chiefs play Broncos? Is it next week?
I don't know if I know they play week 18. Week 8, because I looked it up for, when we were looking up scenarios for the Steelers to possibly get the
So,
1 seed.
so if he uses the Falcons this week, he's going to need to use Denver next week. You're not going to want to
T-Rab
have
both
him.
are what? Next week I have Green Bay over the Saints.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a straight pick 'em, I mean, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand.
So yeah, if it's straight pick 'em, then you're good. Go Falcons this week. Next week, go Green Bay. I think he's good.
Yeah, and I think our resident Bills fan, he thinks they're going to win out. You know, I don't
Uh,
know with that
I don't know. I don't know the
Detroit.
Bills' schedule. Oh, it's right.
They
They got
play the
Detroit,
Lions.
don't they?
Yeah,
Woo. Okay.
and I think it's in Detroit.
Oh man.
If it was in
So
Buffalo, I'd be all over that.
after losing to the Rams, I'm just like, man, I don't know what to think with the Bills. You know?
Yeah, you know what's crazy? I mean, realistically, I mean, if I was the players, I would be kicking Sean McDermott's ass when we got back. I mean, the one thing you can't do is call timeout. I mean, if you're going to sneak it, line right back up and sneak it again. And
Right.
you call timeout, you basically lost the game. I thought Al Michaels was like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. Well, it's another defensive coach, Bob, that I just these defensive head coaches just make these in-game decisions, and you're just like, what the hell are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. On offense, like I just I don't know. There's something about defensive head coaches when it comes to that offense being out there. You shake your head because you don't know what's going to happen because they could make a key mistake.
Speaking of which, bring it back to the Steelers real quick. What do you think of Tomlin at the press conference, kind of doing the "I told you so" on the wide receivers?
Oh, dude, I was just like, bro, let's take it easy. Like, I'm happy that you know, and that was part of my good. I guess I'll just get into my good. There was that Scotty Miller and Mike Williams both had 30+ yards receiving, and they actually had better game than Van Jefferson and Austin per yards. But like, it ain't like any of them lit the world on fire. Like, no one, no one had over 50 yards receiving. So for Mike Tomlin to sit there and be like, "Yeah, I told you, bro, you didn't tell shit." Like, that wasn't that impressive. It was just impressive to see them make a couple catches for 30 yards. That's not like, I don't know how he equates that to he was right and we were wrong. Yeah, I thought that
Yeah,
was stupid.
yeah, I thought Joe Starkey and Bob Pontiani were really on it this morning when they were talking about it, and just say, and Starkey especially was fuming, and he was like, "Hey, this ain't the time for I told you so. You know what? In 3 games, if we go through these next 3 games without Pickens, we win 2 out of 3, or we look really good, even if we only win 1 out of 3. Okay, then you can talk about I told you so. But you
Yep.
played the Browns, who didn't have a lot to play for, don't have the greatest secondary. I mean, let's see what happens when you play. Honestly, this is the best secondary in football we're facing this week, as far as I'm concerned. I mean,
That's pretty good.
Darius Slay, Quinion Mitchell,
Cooper DeJean, like
Cooper
that whole
Dean.
crew.
I mean, and Chauncey Gardner Smith. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a really good
that's a
secondary.
lot of names that are really good. Yeah.
And, I'm going to be interested to see how the interior of our line holds up, because we're going to get challenged in a way we haven't been challenged, I think, all
Oh
season.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
there's
no doubt.
Jalen Carter is going to be a real problem, and I hope they line him up against Isaac. But I mean, they're not dumb. They're going to line him up against Mason McCormick, and him and Zach Frazier are really going to have to work.
They're gonna set up the matchup with the rookie. Plain and simple.
Yeah,
Yeah, no doubt.
absolutely. So I mean, there wasn't a lot of bad, but I tell you what, Myles Garrett after that press conference, that's definitely my bad. It wasn't a Steeler, it was him with the "I'm going to use Cleveland sucks as my fuel." Really? They've been chanting that since, I mean, as long as I can remember, and then
I
back
was
to the
about to
set.
say probably before I was even born. So yeah,
Yeah,
that guy. I've never seen an edge rusher in my entire life watching football just run his mouth like he does. Like I just it's strange to me. Like 2 weeks ago when they beat us and he was like, "I'm the best." I've never seen a defensive player, let alone a guy on the D line or an edge rusher or whatever, act that way. Have you? Like, you've been watching football longer than I have. I mean, have you ever seen a defensive player act like that? It's one thing for it to
yeah,
be a wide receiver or a running back.
Mark Gastineau. Mark Gastineau is the guy I remember being, and he was kind of the father of the me, the sack dance and everything else. He's a great, great player. I mean, he had the sack record forever. I don't know if anybody's seen it, or if they haven't seen it. You should look up Gastineau and Brett Favre, because they literally almost got in a fist fight because Gastineau was really pissed. And this wasn't right after he let Strahan sack him. This was within the last year. They got together,
Okay.
and Gastineau really, really went after him.
I guess there have been like guys like Romanowski that would say some stuff. I don't
Yeah,
know if
but
you
not
remember
really an edge
him.
rusher.
No, just
T-Rev
in
says,
general,
hey,
like defensive
hey,
players in
Taysom.
general. But D lineman, I mean, just specifically D lineman, no. I just never heard of anybody really. I'm trying to think of
Yeah.
defensive guys that used to like really just say some stuff. You're just like, why do you keep saying? But D lineman wise, no, I don't recall anybody. Like I just,
Hey,
you know what?
he-
Besides, now that I think about it, Micah Parsons is another one that says a lot. He says a lot too. But those two just they really talk a lot. I just I don't know. I don't get it.
hey, it looks like T-Rev is asking to come on and talk here, and it looks like we could accept it. What do you think? We bring him on?
Well, it's a Steelers podcast, and we're going to be putting this up on YouTube. So that's the only problem.
Oh, okay. So we don't want to let him come on and talk for a second?
I mean, for a Steelers podcast, we're going to be putting on YouTube. I mean, I don't, I don't
Do you
normally
promise
do
to talk
business that
about
way.
the Steelers? If you promise to at least talk a little Steelers, we can talk about the 2-3 seed with the Bills.
I'll tell you what. I'll make a deal with him. If the Steelers face the Bills in the playoffs, we'll bring him on. Maybe then
We,
maybe then I'll we'll do it. I don't know.
he says he can do that.
But anyways, we should get back to Steelers talk.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to bring up too, I wanted to give Russell Wilson some love. The two TDs, the 101.1 passer rating, again another 100 something passer rating. Uh, 6 rushes for 70 yards, his most rushes and most rushing yards in a game. This was a game where I thought he looked literally 100% healthy. This was it started to look that way against the Bengals big time, but then like I felt like this game really recertified that for me that dude, he's back. Like he's 100% and he looks legit.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was him to run those RPOs was really surprised he did that, and I think it was his subtle nod to Tomlin of, okay, keep Justin Fields over there. Let me just run what I run,
Yeah. Yeah,
which is
I think
which is
that
good.
yeah. I mean it is a good thing. Like you want him to be able to be the old Russ and be mobile and be able to take off like he did. Like dude, when he was that way, that was when he was Super Bowl winning Russell Wilson. So yeah, I think that definitely is him going, hey, I'm fine. I can run if I need to run. There's no need to bring Justin out.
I
But
think I don't know what it is, but the NFL has been really weird about protecting quarterbacks. Like last night with Joe Burrow, where he,
yeah,
the face mask, the obvious, and that wasn't the first one. There's been a lot of them this year where quarterbacks are getting hit in the head, they're getting face masks, and
yeah.
nobody, and they're not getting called. And it's like, Sam Darnold not getting a face mask call. No, of course it's egregious and it should have happened. But
Right.
Joe Burrow doesn't get a call. I mean, who the hell are we protecting if we're not protecting Joe Burrow?
These refs are bad, dude. Like I don't they just don't see anything and I don't know. It's just very strange. This year it's been literally just it's so obvious there's a penalty and they just don't call it. And I don't get it. I really don't. Oh, Derek said, hey Derek.
Hey, Derek.
But yeah, I don't get it. It's a weird phenomenon that's going on right now in the NFL is that only certain quarterbacks it seems like now are protected. You better be, but for Burrow not to be like, protected is interesting to me. I
Yeah,
don't know.
hey, it's Derek's birthday. Happy birthday, buddy.
That's birthday. But who's another good you had?
You know, the Landon Roberts stop on fourth down was a nice good. And Joey Porter, for the most part, I thought played a really clean game. So I would kind of combo that with Porter, reducing his penalties. But you know, I, we could literally almost name the whole defense I can't think of any except for the touchdown to Judy where Minka didn't ride him
Hmm.
to the end zone.
Yep.
I really can't think of a bad on the defense. And mostly on the offense, you know, other than, the tackles were a little bit weak. I thought the PFF scores were ridiculous,
I have an
saying they,
interesting bad. If you want to just get into, I feel like I don't want to miss people. Like I thought, Highsmith, the 2 tackles for a loss, the 2 sacks, him being back was amazing. I thought that him being back helped them be very aggressive and hit it home, getting to the quarterback. Here's another one. Queen, the 10 tackles. Uh, what else? He had 5 solo. That pass defense, I think it was on the Joku. He was another one that had a huge pass defense. Um, Who's another good? I don't want to forget. I don't want to leave these guys out. I really don't. Boz, the field goal, the 54-yarder. He's just the best kicker in the league right now. I mean, just look at what their kicker did. He literally. I was having this conversation with somebody else. If their kicker makes those 2 field goals, that alters this game entirely. Do you agree with that?
yeah. I mean, even if he makes one out of two, I think it brings a different vibe to it. When he missed the second one, you almost felt that we were going to go right back down the field and score
They
because
were
the
defeated then.
offense had been set out for a while. Yeah,
That was them. Like that was when they were really defeated. It was like, man, we can't do anything right. We can't put up any points. It's a wrap. And I think if he makes both those field goals, I think you see more of a, if the Steelers win, it's 23-20, something like that. It's very close, down to the wire, not the way it ended. But
I
yeah,
think they start blitzing like crazy too.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I,
Um,
I really struggled, to be honest with you, just to jump ahead here for a second. Really struggled with an ugly, but the one ugly thing that I found was the rumors and how many people in the local Pittsburgh media were willing to run with the rumor that this was a phantom suspension on the Pickens injury. I look, say what you will about the kid. I'm a huge fan of his. I don't, you know, the antics and everything, yeah, I could
mhm,
take or leave that. But I mean, he's our best receiver, you know.
right.
But this whole to just kind of, hey, I'm going to go along with a phantom suspension for what? If I'm going into my contract year. You want to bring me back on my fourth year and try to make me play? Mark Caboli has said that's a horrible idea because he would be beyond a distraction if they don't pay him in the off season.
Yeah,
And what's his incentive to go along with that? To say, okay, I've got a hamstring tear, which could really affect my ability to get paid because now I have a history of soft tissue injuries. But yeah, I'm just going to let you lie and fake the injury report. Not that we don't think the Steelers have done faking the injury report, but at least they haven't got caught yet.
right. And I don't buy it. This would be stupid to not play him when you need him. I mean, you absolutely need this guy over this 3 game stretch. It's the worst stretch of the season. How do you, I just don't buy it at all. And I don't know why. Well, I'll tell you this, Bob. The media runs with it because it gets clicks, it gets views, it gets whatever you want to call it. That's why they
Right.
do this. That's the media in a, that's how they are. It doesn't,
Yeah.
we live in a time now where it's not even got to be true. It just needs to, seem true, and they'll run with it. And then
Right.
people will fall for it, and they want it. They love that shit. They eat it up, and then here you are. You find out, well, this wasn't even fucking remotely true. And it's like, yeah, exactly, because you just wanted to believe what they're putting out there. And if this happens with national media, local media, you name it. And yeah, it is ugly that they are running with that, but I'm also not surprised. I'm
Yeah.
really not.
And Tomlin kind of today he said, yeah, there's a small chance, but I mean, he was talking like he ain't playing this week. And to be honest with you, it's kind of questionable that he's back for Baltimore if the grade of the injury is true.
Right, right. I've seen two different things. I've seen some say a grade 2 will take him 2 weeks, and I've seen grade two. It needs like 3 to 4 weeks
Yeah.
at least. So I don't know. I'm hoping that it's barely a grade two. I don't know. I don't know what qualifies. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what qualifies as a grade two, but I'm hoping that it barely became a grade two strain, and that the Baltimore game. I think you brought this up, and I think you were ahead of the game more than anybody when you brought this up. That the most important game is the Baltimore game, and when I looked at it, I was like, "Wow, Bob's right. It is the most important game. They win that game, then nothing else matters. Literally."
Yeah.
Nothing else matters. They'll have the 3 game lead, and they can't catch them, and they're done. It doesn't matter what happens. So, uh, I am willing to be okay with him not playing in this game if we have him for the Baltimore game. Like
Yeah.
that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's unfortunately questionable that we'll have him for the Baltimore game. The other question is too, could they theoretically put Roman Wilson or bring him back to the active roster? I'm not 100% sure where he lies from the IR standpoint, but
That's a great question. I don't. It depends on when he went on the IR. He can come back after 4 weeks. So is he past his 4 week? I've never seen the kid, so I don't even really fucking know. So
yeah, I don't think he can come back this week, but I think there's a chance he could be activated for the Baltimore game. And you almost have to wonder at this point. The guy was a third round pick. I mean, third round wide receivers
yeah,
are starters, and
usually yes.
you gotta think. I mean, yeah, the whole jump aboard the moving train. Well, Mike Williams finally jumped on the train by necessity this past week,
Right.
and for some reason, our number one receiver, Fryermuth, was chipping Miles Garrett half the game.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know.
get that. Although you know, we're gonna be on in the morning on the main channel on YouTube for the Hard Knocks reaction. Um, there was a nice shot of Darnell Washington singles up on Miles Garrett, and
I saw.
ooh, yeah, there was Miles didn't have much success against Darnell Washington.
No, he did not. It was because he's even bigger.
Yeah,
Washington's even bigger than Miles Garrett, and
yeah,
that's why he didn't. He wasn't exactly very successful. Hey, I have an interesting bad I wanted to say on here.
okay,
Um, so the offense only put up 3 points in the first quarter, and you could tell they were really struggling. I mean, not having Pickens didn't help. Uh, but I decided to do a little deep dive into this. And do you know that the highest amount of points this offense has scored in the first quarter is 7 points? That's it.
yeah, we're we're
Um,
really good in the second quarter though.
well, so I started doing a deeper dive into the first quarter. They have scored 0 points in the first quarter 3 times. They have scored 3 points 6 times. They scored 6 points 1 time, and they've scored 7 3 times. They have never had a first quarter where they scored a touchdown and then kicked a field goal to get to 10 points. Not one this season. And
We're
I
we're sa-
look at
we're
this and
saving
I'm
it for
kind of,
Baltimore.
dude, they better start doing something because, yeah, I started looking at this and I'm like, holy shit, like they really have a hard time putting up points in the first quarter. And when you face, the Eagles or maybe even the Ravens at home or the Chiefs, you better put up something. You better put up at least 7 in the first quarter because if you don't, it's going to be a wrap.
Yeah, I agree, and I think part of that is because if as we watch the games, I think why the second quarters have been so much better than the first is once Smith gets out of the script and starts
Mm-hmm.
to really react,
Mm-hmm.
he gets really good. In the second quarter, he's good. In the third and fourth quarter, he's really good.
Yeah.
And he kind of throws out what's not working, and I think part of that is Russ being a veteran, knowing, okay, this is not here, this is, they're talking. But I think you just can't give all the credit to Russ. I mean, Arthur Smith is, you know, other than that fucking toss play that we all hate to Najee. I mean, I don't know why they continue to run that. It makes zero sense. I mean, I get that I the Steelers' strength, and we talked about this the other day. The Steelers' strength on the offensive line is Isaac, Zach, and Mason. They're really good run blockers.
Yes. Yep.
Broderick and Dan Moore. Okay, Broderick is a better run blocker than Dan Moore, but our tackles
Mhm.
are our weakness. So
Yep.
why are we running
To
to
the
the
outside.
tackles? Yeah, it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
I don't get it either.
And you look when
I
Najee
don't know.
uses his vision and cuts back. You know, a lot of times he just runs kind of to the outside and stays there. But when he jump cuts it back, which it's almost always there, there's usually a wide open hole there.
They
It,
do.
it,
They push that whole thing open for him to cut back and take off.
yeah,
No, I agree. It's like a wall, a wave just comes through, and he cuts back, and it's there, and he's gone. He can take off. Um,
yeah.
it's kind of funny that we mentioned this because like you're ugly. You already mentioned it being the media. What was your bad? I don't even. I'm trying to recall what the bad was.
Miles Garrett.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't think any Steeler rose to the level of bad. I mean, even my buddy Dan Moore, who everybody knows I'm not a fan, um, but I mean, even I didn't think played terrible. This whole narrative of okay, he dominates Miles Garrett. You know, if you believe the made up stat of pass rush win rate, he doesn't dominate Miles Garrett according to PFF. But it's just, well, he doesn't get sacked because they run away from him. Okay, fine, whatever. Production wise, has Garrett wrecked most games he's played against the Steelers? No. But you really look at over the last 2 years, he's played pretty good against the Steelers. You know, they basically split for a while now. I mean, it's
mhm.
really weird. We beat the living hell out of Baltimore, 8 out of 9 or 9 out of 10 or whatever it is. But we're splitting with Cleveland every year. And I mean, yeah, they were pretty good last year, but they sucked 2 years ago. They sucked this year, and we keep splitting with them. I don't
Yeah.
get it.
No, I don't disagree. Um, so my ugly is it's going to be CPAT.
Oh yeah, we asked it.
I I I just can't get over it. I really can't. Bob. um, 4 carries, 3 yards, an average of point 0.8 yards per carry. He had a reception for -1 yards. The fumble that gave the ball back to him that could have put them back in the game if they marched down there and scored a touchdown quickly.
Yeah,
Uh, what happened to this guy? He was making plays early in the season, and I mean he looked great. Uh, to me, it's so I looked something up. I went a deeper dive into stats, and the one that kind of stuck out to me, or two, I guess you could say, was one. It's his lowest yards before contact ever, and
hmm
then it's his highest yards after contact this year. So that kind of tells me he's lost a step. Like he's not the quickness isn't as there as much as it used to be. Um, and for me, that's what angers me with Arthur Smith. This guy's lost a step, yet you're putting him out there on toss plays that puts him 5 yards back when you've got this guy named Jalen Warren who's fast as fuck. I, I don't get it. Like I just it baffles my mind. This guy's getting paid millions of dollars to be offensive coordinator. Why in the world do you keep doing the toss with CPAT or even Najee whenever you tried it once with Jalen and he turned 5 yards into 11 because he gained 6? Like I just
yeah.
I don't get it.
Honestly, and we've talked about this. You know, I if you look at his whole career, the guy has the most kickoff returns for touchdown in NFL history. He's
Right.
been a long, angular type player, and somebody told him he's allowed to go back to the buffet for a second and third round. And I mean, he's chunky now. Hey, I'm a fat guy. I could say it.
Same.
He's chunky. I mean, and that's good for a lineman. That ain't good for a running back. And
Right.
I he's had a great career. I love the idea when we got him of, okay, this is a really nice insurance policy. And, let's face it, he had the one really good game against the Colts before he got hurt. And then missed a couple of games. I just,
Yeah.
I think at the beginning of the year, because Jalen was hurt, maybe, and because he looked good against the Colts in a couple other games, he looked okay, like he had burst. I think now at this point it's at the expense of Jalen. I would rather. I think if those 3 carries go to Jalen and Jalen gets 12 carries, he might have 65 or 70 yards instead of 47. It was obvious Jalen is. That's why I named him as my first good. He was the best offensive player in the game as far as I was concerned. Although I do
It's
think Pat had some nice plays.
it's another baffling thing how much they're not using Jalen Warren. Like I don't get that either. Like this guy is a fucking weapon. Why in the world are you not using him more? Like as you said, part of our crew loves Najee, and I don't mind that. I like Najee. I think he's a good running back, but Jalen Warren is the bigger playmaker. Period.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean,
when he goes out there, he literally wears these defenses down because he's so quick, he's so elusive, he's just so good. I don't know why. I mean, I get he's more fumble. Uh, he fumbles a lot more than Najee, but he's too good to not be out there. Like I just don't know
yeah.
why I don't know why they don't go to him more. He should be playing a lot more. It should be he always has more carries than anyone. Period.
And he's another guy who's eligible for a contract as a UDFA.
I was gonna
So
ask. I was gonna ask you. He came the year after Najee was drafted, correct? He's 1 year
right,
behind Najee.
but I think UDFA's, and I could be wrong about this, but
That's the
I
part. Yep, that's the part. I don't know. I don't know if it's 3 years for them, but four for drafted. Like, is that how it works?
I think that's how it works. And if it doesn't work, it seems like a long time for a UDFA to make the league minimum. If
He
he's been
may
in
be
the
a
league for
restricted
years,
free agent. Do you know that? Would
he
he be a
he is
restricted?
restricted.
That's
Yeah,
what
so
I
they
thought.
can match.
Okay.
They
Okay.
can
Yep.
match.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I was hoping. I was hoping that UDFA's are restricted free agents to where we can match any offer.
But what if
So
the whole thing with, they didn't pick up Najee's option and some think, hey, it's a mistake. Don't look like a fucking mistake now. I mean, it maybe 4 weeks ago it did. It don't look like it now.
uh,
So
he
what
has his
happens if
good
somebody
weeks.
comes? Yeah, yeah, but he hasn't had one in a while.
Right.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
to your
what
point, I'm
happens if
saying a while back. Yeah.
yeah, what happens if somebody comes along and offers Jalen $8 million?
Right. I know. And it could happen. It could easily
Yeah,
happen.
yeah,
Because
because you could
8
franchise
million,
Najee. Yeah,
yeah, 8 million is relatively, isn't that really cheap for if somebody's that high on him, then in theory, 8 million is not that bad, correct?
actually, for a running back, it's actually really good. I mean,
Is
there's
that good? I
very
mean, is
few
that considered high? I'm trying to think of the running backs in the league, like who's the highest. Like McCaffrey's making god
Yeah, he's
awful now.
making by far the most. Like he's
Yeah.
almost 20 million. He's like
Um,
18 million.
I
Saquon, I
wonder
think,
what.
is like
Yeah.
12 to 15.
Okay.
Um, I think Henry. Actually, I don't even think Henry makes
Jacobs
10
in
million.
Green Bay probably got a decent contract. Henry, yeah,
Well,
Henry in Baltimore. I'd have
yeah,
to look, but yeah, I trying to think of some other ones.
8 million is pretty near the top of the market. It's definitely a top 10 contract. It might even be a top 5.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But at least they can match it if they want to keep him.
Yeah, and then it puts the Steelers to the choice of, do we keep Jalen or do we keep Najee. I mean, there is the
Dude,
hope is always that you could maybe keep both on a 1 or 2 year
right.
type timeshare deal. But I mean, if it
I
comes down to it, if they're both going to make 8 million, I think I got to go with Jalen.
I agree. To be honest, I agree. It's just really strange. They're going to have a really strange off season of, you know, can they bring back both Justin and Russ? Could they bring back both Jalen and Najee? The answer I think is no to both. But in a perfect world, that'd be great. They're going to be what, 70 million free of cap? I think I read or saw 70 to 75 million free in cap space.
Yeah, I think there's a chance they could, if they restructure, could get close to 100.
Yeah, you're probably right. So, is there a world where maybe they can? I don't know who's. I have to look and see who all the free agents are. I know it's early, but for me to really have an idea of what I feel like they're going to do, I'd have to look and see who all is coming up with these on their contracts. But my gosh, I mean, my personal opinion, the priority should be Russ and Jalen, and
Yeah.
that's just me right now. And I know,
And
and it's crazy to say that because Russ is 36 years old, but holy shit, if he can play like this another year or two, I'm taking it, right? I mean, Justin, you just don't know if he's going to get that level or not.
yeah. And another question too is, if you're the Steelers, do you sign Pickens and draft a receiver in the first
Yeah,
round for the first time
yeah,
since Antonio Holmes?
yeah,
Or
true.
do you sign Pickens to some 2 year prove it deal where, hey man, we're going to give you a nice raise, kind of like a Deontay type deal, and then go break the bank for T. Higgins,
Yeah,
which,
yeah, dude. I get both ways. I really
mm,
do. So I don't know, man. I don't know, but next year is going to be really interesting to see what they
yeah.
do because
But we
you
shouldn't jump
can't
too
keep
far ahead.
everybody. No, but it is fun because we know that's going to be coming up next year.
Yeah. Well, we know one thing that our other Dave,
Yeah,
he knows
yeah.
that we know where his priority is we
Oh
got to get
yeah,
another wide receiver.
oh yeah, absolutely. All right, Bob. Well, that's all I got. You got nothing.
Yeah, I thanks everybody who joined and asked a couple questions. We appreciate it, and follow us, like us, check us out on YouTube. We have content going 5 days a week. We got legendary picks on Friday for just yet. We pick all the games in the NFL. We got our preview episode coming up on Thursday. And big game
Hard
against
knocks
Philly.
tomorrow.
Hard Knocks in the morning. Yeah, we talk about the episode tonight. If those of you who haven't watched it yet, pretty in depth with the Steelers and Browns stuff. It's an interesting watch.
Yep. All right, guys. Everybody, take care. We're out.
All right, later.